This is starting. There you go. You're on.
Good morning. So the talk this morning is on dropping down and how to do it appropriately. Like most of the talks that I give, there's a couple of critical factors. And the most important of those is understanding the right attitude about dropping down, which we'll talk about in just a second. It's also worth noting that all the talks that I give, demo skills, dropping down, handling objections, are based on one core fact, and that's this. From the moment that you say, have you ever had the opportunity to price high quality cutlery? From the moment you transition into your price presentation, you have stopped selling Cutco. You're no longer selling. Selling's over. It's still important what you say, how you say it, what you do, but all you're doing from that moment on is not losing the sale that you should have already made. So if your demo is not strong, dropping down is not going to fix it. If they're not sold on the product, you can't sell them anything by dropping down. If it's a Homemaker Plus 8 is not worth $11.49, then a trimmer's not worth $57. So it's still important what you say and how you say it, but your demo's got to be strong. You're not selling, you're just trying to help them find what's right for them when you get to the price presentation and dropping down. As far as dropping down with so that's a fact that you have to work with. As far as dropping down with the right frame of mind, that hinges on understanding that if they don't buy the first thing you show them, that is not failure. You have successfully found one thing that's not right for them. That's it. I'll set this up a little bit better for you. When I was new, I had an excellent manager. He's a good friend of mine. He's still in touch with me today, as a matter of fact, although he's retired almost 20 years ago. He had started selling Cutco before I was born. And he said something to me when I was in training that made a lot of sense. And that was, if you don't expect to sell a Homemaker Plus 8, you won't. As a small point of reference, I should say that when I started with Cutco in 1988, the biggest set we had was a Homemaker Plus 8. There was no Signature, there was no Ultimate. About 50% of what's in the catalog wasn't there at all in terms of knives and accessories. You know, what you guys see today here in 2015. But anyway, Homemaker Plus 8 was it. That was the target. So one of those. And he made a good point, which is if you don't expect to sell one, you won't. And I understood that. If it catches you by surprise when somebody drops $11.49 on a set of knives, it's very unlikely to happen. And I bring that up in the context of the fact that most of the people that work here are college students, and therefore not our target market. The price of a Homemaker Plus 8 when I was in 1988, of course, wasn't $11.49, but it represented the same amount of money, basically, within a few bucks, of how much money my parents gave me for school that fall. That and $200 on the dining room card was supposed to be my spending money. By spending money, I mean any food I wanted for myself, any entertainment I wanted for myself, any clothes I thought I needed to buy. It was supposed to last the whole semester, and it did. So that was a big number to me, what represented the price of a Homemaker Plus 8, and I would not have spent it on knives. But I also knew that I wasn't selling to college students like me. Coincidentally, I dropped that same amount of money in about 7 days over spring break in the spring semester. So it's really just a question of what your priorities are, okay? But I just want to make the point that if you go out going, nobody's going to spend this much money on knives, you know, trimmer's not worth $57, a Homemaker Plus 8 is not worth $11.49, it's not going to happen because the customer's going to sense it. Your presentation's going to reflect that, okay? So I understood completely when my manager said, if you don't expect to sell a Homemaker Plus 8, you won't. Makes perfect sense. The problem is that he didn't teach me the other side of the coin. Sure, you got to expect to sell a Homemaker Plus 8, but you know what? You also have to expect not to sell a Homemaker Plus 8. What's the average order these days? For our office, yeah, company 250, our office 350, 400, somewhere in that range. Homemaker Plus 8 is $11.49. So we already know that the average customer doesn't buy a Homemaker Plus 8. The last time I was counting office statistics, which was admittedly over 10 years ago, I did the math and found that 1 in 10 orders was over $500, and 1 in 100 was over 1,000. Now I know that's changed significantly since then because the prices have gone up since I was doing that then. But the same concept applies. You're not always going to sell a Homemaker Plus A, and it's not a failure when you don't. So I'm out of my presentation. I'm expecting to sell a Homemaker Plus 8. I think it's an excellent set. I think everybody should have one. I get out there in the presentation, and I get to the end, and I say, so would you like to get started today? And entitle yourself to the free gifts with it, just like I was taught in training. I thought it was a great set. I thought it was a great value. I thought I'd done a great demo. And most of the time, the customer said, nope. Okay, we've got a couple other sets here. One's called a Galley Plus 6, and the other's called a Galley. Do you like those? Sorry, you can't see the visual for those of y'all on the screen, but the gentleman here will tell you it was worth it. I slumped over in a chair like somebody let all the air out. Now, let's back up for a minute. We could discuss the nature of sales, what it means to be a true professional salesperson. Don't need to do all that. I want to cover one point with you, and that's this. We don't teach high-pressure sales. We never will. There's no reason for it. Plus, the more professional salesmanship you learn, the more you start to learn what unprofessional salesmanship looks like just by default. We don't ever have to tell you that's unprofessional. That's not, you just figure it out as you go because we're teaching your professional salesmanship. But on the point of high pressure, and again, we could pick this apart significantly, but let's go for kind of a rough definition for the point of this talk. Would it be fair to say that high pressuring your customer could be defined as being making them uncomfortable telling you no? We could pick it apart a little bit more and refine it, but that'll work. Making them emotionally uncomfortable. I mean, because you're not going to threaten them with sharp objects, right? Okay, so we're not talking about physically uncomfortable. We're talking about making them emotionally uncomfortable with telling you no. Okay. Backing up yet again. Does the customer want a Homemaker Plus 8? Would they like to get it? If they had won $1,149 on the radio this morning, would they have gone ahead and ponied up the cash and bought it? Mm-hmm. Usually. Okay. So they already didn't want to say no. If you've done your job reasonably well, they know Homemaker Plus 8 is really the basic or the starter set, and they get that. So they wanted it. If they could have justified the money, they would have gotten it. So when they say no, they already feel bad for their own reasons. And if you slump over in your chair, they feel bad for you. Okay? So then you show them a Galley or a Galley Plus 6, whatever your drop down is. Let's say that's not right for them either. Now, they don't want to say yes because it's not right for them. They're afraid to say no because they think you're going to slash your wrists on the driveway. So what do they say if they don't say yes and they don't say no? Maybe, later, think about it, get back with me. I'll get back with you. They're lying. 80% of the time they're lying. The other 20% of the time they're mistaken. They won't get back to you. There's no future sale. It doesn't exist. So my point is you just made them uncomfortable with no. When you slump over in your chair or you give any visual or nonverbal or verbal cue that your objective, that you were hooked on selling the Homemaker Plus 8, that was the only acceptable outcome. So if whatever you show them, the signature, the ultimate, the first thing you show them, if they're like, that's not for me, okay. And they say, well, this is nice. This boy, this gal, this man, this woman's going to tell me no, going to show me stuff, and I can tell them no until they show me what I want. They're comfortable with no, and they should be. Because like I said, the selling's over. Now, I'm not saying you can't influence what they end up buying, how much they end up buying, particularly with the use of free gifts. But it's important to know that the selling is over. The demo's done. At this point, you got to make them comfortable with picking out what they want. You make them uncomfortable with the process, and you'll hear this. Do you have a price list you can leave with me? Do you have a catalog? Do you have something you can leave behind? When they say something like that, they basically just told you, I would rather figure this out on my own, knowing almost nothing about the knives and how to read a price list, than have you help me. Now, it may mean that you have made them uncomfortable. It may just mean they think you don't know what the heck you're talking about, and it would be easier to figure out on their own. So, but that's a bad sign. That's my point. You have to continue to make sure they feel comfortable talking to you about what you want. So think of it this way. If you said, do you want this set, Mrs. Smith, and would you like to get started today with these free gifts? And they said, yeah, what would you say? Okay. And if they say no, what should you say?
Okay.
Okay. Either way, it's got to be low key. Now, you can have that party in the car when you sold that signature set. Many a stop sign at the end of the neighborhood, and Dan's down there. What are you looking at? But not in the kitchen, right? Not even in the driveway. Because I've had them come out and go, oh, you forgot something, you know, and I'm sitting there partying in the driveway. Stop sign up the street. It's a great thing about texting. You've got people that will celebrate with you. I used to actually like leave the neighborhood and find a payphone, as if you know what a payphone is. And call my manager. And then I have to find a quarter. Call my manager and go, I sold another set. Just to get somebody to celebrate with me. You guys can do it right there while you're at the demo. That's so cool. Technology. What will you kids think of next? Anyway, so they say, this is what, you know, blah, blah. Is this what you want? No. Okay, we have other choices. Very low key as you're showing them and working with them on this stuff. And I guess I should say here, too, that if you came to hear any of my talks looking for really smart things to say, key phrases, I don't really have a lot. I teach principles and basics and let you put your own words and style on that, particularly as it comes to dropping down and even when it comes to handling objections, because so much of how you do that at the end and what words you use hinges on what's going on before that. In other words, the better you get at this, the better you're going to get at reading your customer. And there's times when the free gift better be a hunting knife and a fishing knife, not a pair of shears. And you should know that as you go through this. Okay, you should be able to figure it out as you go. So I'm not here to say, well, you got to say exactly just this or exactly just that. But if you've got some principles you can work with and you can apply them to your personality and you can apply them to the situations that you come across over and over again. So in general, understand that when you haven't sold them the first thing you've offered them, you haven't failed. You've successfully found one thing that's not right for them. The other thing you need to remember is that you definitely need to drop down in steps. I think this is pointed at the marker board. So if I can find a marker, what do you know? Oh, that's not a dry erase, I don't think. Is this a dry, oh, here it is. I don't need it right now, but I bring mine with me because I know that sometimes y'all run out. So I'm prepared in case. Good deal. Y'all can see the marker board. And I just always use a Homemaker Plus Sage as my starting point because that was just the way I was taught, meaning that was the biggest thing that we had at the time. So whatever, the concept applies. By the time you've finished your demo, you have established for the customer a comfort zone. How much money they're going to feel comfortable spending today. And I say a zone because it can be a range. You guys have already figured out that if they get enough free stuff, they're comfortable sometimes spending more. Okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind as you're doing this. But let me ask you this. When you get there to the house for the presentation, how much are they planning on spending?
Nothing.
Zero. And by the time you leave, most of the time we have a sale, which tells us that obviously it's something that we do on this presentation that influences the process. But by the time your demo is over, the customer's comfort zone, so to speak, is set. Are they likely to tell you what their comfort zone is?
No.
Nope. It'll happen occasionally. So far, you've been on probably more demos than the rest of these guys put together. So you're out there, and sometimes they'll say, well, I've got $400 I can spend. What can I get for $400? If you hear that every now and then, understand that that's a good sign. You're doing your presentation well. It means they trust you. They're willing to tell you their budget and help you figure out what can work for them. That's good. And even when you are doing a good demo, that still doesn't come up often just because a lot of people aren't comfortable sharing that, or they're kind of holding back. And we'll talk about them holding back here in a second. But you're not entirely sure what the comfort zone is. So you start with 1149, Homemaker Plus Save. They say no. And if the next thing you do is go, oh, do you want to buy a trimmer? Their head's still bobbing like this from the Homemaker Plus 8. If you jump off the 5th floor, can you stop on the 1st floor? No. Right. You're going to splat on the pavement. For those of you on video, you can't really see that, but it's funny, trust me. You have to take the stairs. You have to drop down a step at a time. And the customer will allow you to if you've made them comfortable with no. Now, if they say, well, can I just pick and choose some pieces? Go there, because that creates comfort, and then work on building it back up, which is its own skill set as well. So like, well, I just, what about these 4? Quoting the price on those 4. Ms. Smith, that'd be great if you got those 4. But when we do talk about a set, Mrs. Smith, you get something to store it in, like a wood block. And once we get into sets, I could give you something free. So let me see if we've got a set that includes those 4, maybe a 5th knife, and how I can help you out with this. Okay, so you can kind of get back into the dropping down cycle on that. Here's something that's important to know. You're a trained salesperson. The longer you're here, the more trained you are, of course. There's additional outside sources that you can get lots of training in the great world of sales as well. Your customer is not a trained customer. They don't have classes on how to buy and not buy things from the salesman sitting at your kitchen table. Very few things are sold on a one-on-one basis in home anymore anyway. There's a fair amount of, Mary Kay and Tupperware and these purse parties and Longaberger baskets and all that, but it's still mostly a party plant. There's very few things sold one-on-one in customers' homes anymore. Kirby vacuum cleaners comes to mind, and Cutco. So there we have it. So the customer is not all that familiar or comfortable or trained in the process of how to be a customer. But over their lifetimes, they may have learned 1 or 2 things. Never more than 2. 1 or 2. I'll tell them both to you, and that way you'll know at least as much as all your customers. How's that sound? Okay. The first of those that they may know is don't look too excited. Much like y'all at 7 o'clock this morning, you can get for the whole demo and still make a sale. Because maybe they just came off a 3rd shift. Maybe they've got other things on their mind. Maybe they're just not a high energy person. Maybe they're playing it cool on purpose. If you do your demo well, your demo is your demo. Even if you do your demo not well, your demo is your demo. You do the price presentation, you do the dropping down, you do it the same across the board, because you don't know what's going on in them. You try to read those nonverbals. But I've done many a demo where I got this from the husband the whole time. And still made a sale. I've missed some like this too, but I don't make any presuppositions because I've caught a lot of them. Because some people just like to listen and hear what they're going to hear. The second thing the customer may know, or may not, but they might, don't take the salesman's first offer. They know in the grand world of commerce that the deal gets better if they say no. Years ago when I was a district manager, and should have known better, I got a flyer in the mail from a local car dealership. You may have won a brand new car. See if the 6 digits on your postcard match the 6 digits posted on the sales room floor. You're trying to do what? Just get more people in, right? So I check the hours. They're open late 3 nights a week. They close at 6 3 nights a week. I leave the office. I go by there 5:55. Salesmen are leaving. I'm like, that's exactly what I want to see. I run in the door, match my little card, doesn't match, I'm headed back out. So, in the market for a new car? Hair right over my shoulder. Turn around. No, I'm not. Just checking to see if I won. But if you were in the market for a new car, I'm like, oh, pretty good. Salesman to salesman, I appreciate that. I said, oh. So what would you be looking for? I said, I hadn't really thought about it, but my dad just bought a new Jaguar. He understands the father-son dynamic. So he's like, Jaguar. We got one in on a trade-in. It's around back. Hadn't even been cleaned up for sale yet, but I'd still like to show it to you if you want to see it. Sure, why not? So I walk around back, and as we're walking towards the car, he says, now there's two things I need to tell you. The first is one of the taillights doesn't work. It's not broken. It just, the fuse is out or the bulb is out. We'll have that changed before you leave here with it. Good, y'all got it. And he said the latch on the glove box doesn't work just right. It sticks, and we'll have that fixed before you leave here with it. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm walking around the Jaguar, and he's telling me all about it. And I finally say, how much is this anyway? And he tells me the price. And I said, that's it? And then I left. Because I just screwed my ability to get a better deal. And even though it was a great price to start with, if I bought it at the price he quoted me, I was going to feel like an idiot. I was going to wonder for the rest of my life, every time I got in that car, how much less could I have gotten it for if I hadn't been stupid? But I blurted out, that's it, and lost all my negotiating power. Customers will still do that sometimes because they're not trained. And I missed out on a Jaguar at a very good price because my pride got in the way. Okay? But they may or may not know that. Some people know to go, I don't know, it's a lot of money for knives. And they may be thinking, that's it? I've had people say, I thought it would be more the way you were talking about it. I go, well, it can be if it'll make you feel better. But you'll need to make out one check to Cutco and one to Dan. No, I'm good. One guy, back when it was 6/11, he says, I thought it'd be about $1,200. I said, yes, but we're doing buy one, get one this week. He's like, I'm like, no, I can't do that to you. I can't sell you to $1,200. It was 6/11 when I started, just so you know. Homemaker Plus 8. I know. I'm old. It's good. So those are the two things your customer might know. So be aware that that's what you're working with possibly as you do these things. Just on the playing it cool principle, I'm going to wrap this up with just a cute story that it's not entirely about dropping down, but it is about making sure that you treat your customers right. I had a gentleman who's a good friend of mine. His mom was my customer before I even recruited him. I met him when he was 14 when I sold his mom Cutco, and then he came into my office 4 years later when he was 18 and wanted a job. And I didn't recognize him, but he recognized me. And because he had changed a lot from 14 to 18, of course, I had. And number two, I didn't pay that much attention to the 14-year-old when I was selling the knives. It's not a big part of my demo. But he was fascinated by the guy that cut the penny in half and all that jazz. So anyway, Jonathan's on my team. And he comes in one day and says, I got a great story for you. I said, JT, I love you, man, but every rep's got a great story for me. They all think they've got the weirdest demo ever. He goes, no, it's not a weird demo. He goes, I got to tell you the story. I was like, okay, fine. So he says, I'm doing this demo, and he says, I'm just getting a lot of nonverbal, pushback from this lady, just a lot of this, and she's talking about, well, they seem okay. Well, forever. That guarantee doesn't mean anything if the company's not around. She's just talking smack the whole way through the demo. So he says, I got to the end of the demo, which means, because he knows my vocabulary, the part of the presentation, and he said, I just closed my blue book. I didn't present prices or anything. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What did she say? She was like, well, aren't you going to tell me how much they cost? And JT said, nah, you didn't really like them, so it doesn't much matter. She's like, well, I might want some in the future. He's like, no. The price only goes up, from here. It's not a big deal. I might want to get some for my friends. No, if it's not good enough for you, it's not good enough for them. Really, it's not a problem, Ms. Smith. No sales, not a problem. I get paid just to show it's not a big deal. And he left. And And he came over to the office and he told me that story. And I was like, that's great, JT. Don't ever do that again. It's like, why not? I said, well, for starters, you're not the only one that gets paid when you make a sale. I said, based on our averages, I'm out about $10. So if you can do that again, you need to come up here with a 10 spot and cover me because I just lost $10 based on our averages. Okay. And he laughed. I said, but mostly because the customer didn't get what she wanted. You let your pride get in the way. He goes, I know, but I couldn't help myself. I was like, well, now that you've done it once, you know how good it feels. Don't do it again. He's like, all right. You with me on that? Okay. Some people know, don't act too interested. Don't get too excited. Don't drool on the knives. A lot of people don't know that because you'll see them do it, right? Have y'all seen this already? People say, I can have these. I remember before we had 2 colors. My whole kit was 1 color. I showed a whole Homemaker Plus 8 all in 1 color, and they thought I was going to leave that with them. They wanted me to. They're like, those are mine, right? Oh, I got demos this afternoon. How soon will mine get here? A couple of weeks. That long? So, you know, you can get people to drool on the knives sometimes, but a lot of people won't just because they know better than to do that. All right. I started about 7:08, I believe, and it's 7:38. So if anybody wants to text me a question, you can, from all of y'all out there in the great big world of the internet. 803-361-6825. Want to text me a question, you can. 803-361-6825.
Martha?
Yeah, I just told them if they wanted to text me a question, I'd answer it. You want to kill it?
No.
Okay.
Kathy is
So she's going to have a few words here at the end.
uh-huh.
Cool. In that case, you better text me a question or two because we need to kill just a couple of moments until Kathy comes screeching in the parking lot.
Well, do any of you have any questions? If you're not selling $1,000 in order, then maybe it's good to ask a question or two. For sure.
Let's see. Check
You
it.
have like, I don't know, what is it, 100 years of Cutco knowledge here? No, it's
Yeah,
80.
100. Yeah.
80?
Thanks.
80 years?
27.
27.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see a throwdown in our future right now. It's going to get ugly one of these days.
27.
27, guys, 1988. I was recruited to sell Cutco. The price list was 1 page. Oh, here's a critical point. This needs to be made, by the way. And I should talk about this on my demo skills, my handling objections, and my dropping down talk. Assume the budget plan. Assume the budget plan. The last time I sold a Homemaker Plus 8 paid in full was 2002. I can tell you the guy's name. Jim Bowie, coincidentally, was his name, which is a big name in Texas, but he wasn't a Texan. He's in South Carolina. I made him convince me it was okay to let him pay for it in full. Okay? Assume the budget plan. Because a 40-year-old doesn't want to tell some 20-year-old college punk he can't afford what he wants to buy. They assume there's not a budget plan unless you bring it up. There's a lot of people I know that believe in presenting it paid in full and using the budget plan as your drop down. And if it's working for you, I would not talk you out of it. Because as long as it's ethical, one rule applies. If it works, it's good. If it doesn't, it's bad. But I assume the budget plan. I build it in because I want people to feel normal about doing it in payments. By the way, I don't call it the payment plan. I call it the budget plan. Think about the words you're using. Nobody likes payments, but everybody's on a budget, even rich people. Maybe a different budget, but they're still on a budget. So that's a critical part of it, in my opinion. Mrs. Smith, we got a great system where the company knows you don't have 1149 saved up for the knife man. I know that. You know that. The company knows that. So they got this great system. It's called the budget plan. What we do is we go ahead and we jot down your credit, your debit card number, and I hold my hand out like I'm taking an order or something like that. We jot down your credit, your debit card number. We ship the product immediately, so it'll be here end of the week because you guys are going home and roll it that night, right? Which again is different than the old days, trust me. And but we only draw 1/5, in this case $221.55 or whatever the number would be, off your credit card today. And then 30 days later, we draft that again, 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. I think, oh, that makes sense. And I say to the customer, and you see why most of my customers get their sets that long. Totally normalize the budget plan. got to be the thing that everybody does. Because guys, if you've got somebody that can drop 1,100 or 1,500 or buying whatever the big set's paid in full, then you really missed something. I mean, because if they can swing 1,000 a day, they can probably swing a $2,000 loan or 5 payment plan. Okay. But even if that's all they want and they could do it in full, I love the budget plan because I want to be the guy. And that's what I told Jim. He's like, Dan, he said, you told me earlier there's no interest for the budget plan. I said, yeah. He goes, so there's no way you're making more money. They're not paying you more to sell it on the budget plan. I said, no. He said, then why do you want me to get it on the budget plan? I said, because Jim, I want to be the guy that came by and put 5 small numbers on your credit card, not 1 big one. When I run into you in the grocery store, I don't want you to flinch when you see me because you remember that big number on your credit card. And he's like, it's not a problem. I said, all right, if you're sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, okay, I'll let you do it. And pay for it in full. Everybody else, budget plan. You want to feel comfortable with that?
Is that words of wisdom from Dan?
Yeah, there it is.
Got it. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up with the video here. So the sound is on.
Tony Robbins.
Yes, the man. That's right.
I took him golf recently. I never play this game. Old man's game, never do it. But my kids play, so I want to play with them. So I go out, and I do really well. I go out this one day, and I out-power by my instructor. I'm feeling really proud. The next day, I'm not feeling so proud. I keep putting the ball in the water again. I'm so frustrated. Put down another one. Put down another one. I don't care. I don't care what my score is. Let's do it. And finally, I was getting frustrated. He's going things like, ain't it a bitch? This is golf. And I'm going, bull. I said, you're a terrible instructor. I said, because I should at least be consistent at whatever shitty level I can achieve. I said, I know I'm not Tiger Woods, but I should be able to be consistent. And you're just telling me it's difficult. Telling me it's difficult is not helping. Tell me what to do. He said, well, actually, you're only a little bit off. I said, could have fooled me. He said, no, you're about a millimeter or 2 off. I said, you're joking. He said, no, watch this. He said, I didn't teach you this yet. He said, when you approach the ball like this, he said, if you change the angle that you're attacking, it's just 1 or 2 millimeters. In the very beginning, do you see how that changes the arc? This one, instead of being on the green, by 1 millimeter, now you're in the water. 1 millimeter over here, you're in the sand. He said, and also you're hitting the ground by 1 millimeter sometimes. You're not stroking it, just 1 millimeter. And I thought, what a great belief system that when all hell's breaking loose and nothing's working, that you're only 1 millimeter off. Because most people think it's impossible, so they give up. Isn't that true? In real life, it's true. So 2 days later, I'm going to see one of my clients. I do a lot of coaching. I have a man who's the top plastic surgeon in the world. He's going through some tough times in aspects of his life. But this is a guy who gets paid by Sultan of Brunei $1 million to fly over and do 3 people's faces. He is the #1 plastic surgeon around the world. He can make anyone who's ugly look spectacularly beautiful. He showed me pictures of a woman who's 84 years old. He made her look 40 and gorgeous, no exaggeration. You know what? I'm waiting for him in his office, and he's still in surgery. So he's got a new book he's creating to teach other surgeons around the world. And I'm going to, and it's got pictures of the top 100 supposedly most beautiful women in the world's faces. And then men. I wasn't paying attention to that one. I just kept turning the pages, right? But I noticed something. He's got all these measurements. He has mathematically calculated what it takes to make someone look gorgeous, man or woman. And it's a few millimeters. Interesting. For example, on a woman, the distance between the top part of your lip and your nose, this little distance, the measurement of that, if you're beautiful, gorgeous, is the same size as your eye. If it's 1 millimeter more, you have an average face. If it's 2 millimeters more, you're a butt ugly. The difference between butt ugly and gorgeous is 2 millimeters. He's got about a dozen of these little 1 or 2 millimeter changes he makes, and it's a different person. It is unbelievable. So a very powerful belief to leave today with would be, nothing's working, I'm 1 millimeter away. What little thing's going to change? And when I do, it changes everything. Because I'm heading this direction, I make this little shift. You take that out an hour from now, a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, you have a totally different destination from that direction. But the 1 millimeter change, I'll show you one of them right now. Check this out. Stay in the state of certainty. Some of you lost it. Intensify it, whatever it takes. Make your move. Come on. Make your move. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Now feel that in your body. Don't let go of it. Now watch. Here's the difference between being certain and being uncertain. Did you see that? Certain, insert. See if you can find that little spot between the two. Drop just a little bit of your chest, and you feel it drop. Come back up. Drop. How many can feel the difference between where you really feel? Now intensify it. Where you dropped it. Is it a tiny difference? Yes or no? Yes or no? Now, would you condition yourself to feel great in this state? Yes or no? So what I want you to do is give yourself that opportunity. So the way we're going to do is very simple. We're going to go in a peak state. Then we're going to train ourselves. Because guess what? If you're in this state of certainty, and all hell's breaking loose in your life, people can't figure out, you go, move, I'll handle it. People go, he's so lucky, he's so confident. No, here's what I've created for my life, and anyone I know succeeded. I'm a 17-year-old kid from Azusa, California, with no real education other than self-education, with no background, with parents that did their best, all of them, with no money, but I did one thing. I loved people, and I had an enormous demand I made upon myself, and I sculpted my mind and my emotions to get me to do whatever it would take to achieve and to contribute. But to do that, I did it by using my body and changing my focus. I did it by putting myself in a peak physiology and using what I call incantations. Can you train yourself to believe something? Yes or no? Absolutely. How many of you ever made the fatal mistake of going to Disneyland or Disney World, and while you're there made the fatal mistake of going to a ride called It's a Small World After All? What happens for about a week after you're out of that damn place? You're still singing this thing in your head in 24 languages, right? Well, let me tell you something. How many of you have things when you want to go achieve them and this part of your voice goes, oh, it's not going to happen, or forget it? How many got a voice that sometimes interrupts that good pattern? Say, I. What you want to do is train a new one. So starting when I was 17, I started doing incantations, not affirmations. Affirmation, you go, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. What's the problem? You haven't changed your what? Your what? Physiology. If you don't change your physiology, you won't get anything. So in incantations, not only you speak it, but you embody what you're saying with all the intensity you can. And you do it with enough repetitions that it sticks in your head. Like It's a Small World, now the conversation in your head is always the same and it gives you what you want. So use your body and your voice. So 17 years ago, I started doing things. I was working for Jim Rohn, this speaker. I was 17 years old. I had long hair, minestrone soup, acne on my face. And I was trying to call on Bear Stearns type of people and convince them why they should go to this man's seminar and be more successful. I was driving a 1968 Volkswagen. I had earned it $40 a week as a janitor. The only way I did it was park far from the building and then go in, and I love people, and I believe when I put myself in state, I was able to influence people that were far more successful than I was at the time. I would do something that I still do backstage and I've done for 23 years because I don't hope I'm going to be in good state. I demand it. So I do an incantation using my whole body. I'd say, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me in helping as many people as possible today to better their lives by giving me the strength, the emotion, the persuasion, the humor, the brevity, whatever it takes to show these people and get these people to change their lives now. And I would do that literally driving in my Volkswagen to a meeting in LA on the freeway for 40 minutes. People are looking, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. They're going, I know he's a serial killer. I know he is. But by the time I entered that room, when two people meet, if there's rapport, the person who's most certain will always influence the other person. And I was totally certain, and they were trying to get revved up to certainty. Do you agree with this? Yes or no? I do another one because I was poor. I changed my mindset. I kept doing things, but I never got beyond it. I'd say God's wealth is circulating in my life. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are met instantaneously by infinite intelligence, where I'm one with God and God is everything. And I would imagine the abundance of my life, and I would feel so grateful. And a year later, I went from making $38,000 a year to making $1 million a year in 1 year. But successful people do what failures won't. You follow me on this? No?
He's great. Cool. So what did you guys get from today's workshop and that video? Anyone?
The way you handle yourself is the way you'll make a sale.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
That we're trained salespeople, but our customers aren't trained. But they do know a couple things, like never to get too excited, or don't take the first offer that a salesperson gives to you. I remember my first homemaker was this lady who was.
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
I don't hear. Oh yeah, I remember my first homemaker was this lady who didn't even want to do the demo at first. She was like, "Oh, can I just say I did it and just sign this paper?" I'm like, "No, I'm gonna show you the demo because you need to see it." She's like, "Okay." And then the whole entire demo, she was just like, Or long story short, we closed the homemaker. So definitely caught my eye what Dan was saying.
Yeah, when I first started, the homemaker was $9.92. So it doesn't matter what objection, like what the price is. They're always gonna say, whatever it is that they're going to say. It all depends on you. So, anything else?
You don't expect to sell a homemaker plus 8, you won't.
And a lot of that, that's why I wanted to play that video at the end, because it was all about, being certain and making small changes. So, anything else?
If two people walk into the room, who's ever no certain will influence the other person.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, I don't know if you've ever had a demo where you basically, you ran your customer, or there was other demos where, your customer ran you, they were the ones in control of the presentation. So, anything else?
Well, when things are going wrong, it could just be something that's as small as a millimeter off that makes everything else go wrong. So
Or everything go right. Yeah, so even with your demo, to all the small things, right? I think Dan was giving you guys tips on all the small things too throughout the demo that really make a big difference. So, all right, awesome. Anything else? No? Cool. Learned a lot?
Mm.
Definitely. You guys awake? A little
Do
bit?
some
No?
trampoline.
I think we need to do
jumps,
trampoline jumps or something.